Did you know that the average American gains 1 to 2 pounds of fat over the holidays? Now, what if I told you that it is still possible to enjoy every bite of the pie, every holiday party, and still maintain your weight? Because in today's video, I'm going to give you my top 9 tips to help you through the holidays without gaining a single pound of fat and still enjoying the foods that you love. Now, before we get into it, guys, the most important part about these next 2 months is your actions between events and not during events, because everyone thinks that they need to avoid tasty foods at the holiday parties and gatherings, but those events are maybe 5 to 8 days over the entire next 2 months, right? Because thinking about it, it's like, okay, we got Thanksgiving Day, probably the day after Thanksgiving with the leftovers. In December, we got Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Boxing Day, and maybe a couple other random days in December as well, right? So let's say you're off track for 2 days for Thanksgiving and then another 5 days in December. That is still 54 out of 61 days that you're on track, which is an 88% consistency. In fact, you could be off another 5 days throughout the next 2 months and still hit 80% consistency. So it will be pretty difficult to set yourself back as long as you get right back to it on the days in between, right? Because I think where a lot of people go wrong is they'll have one bad day, and let's say on Thanksgiving Day, they ate a bit more turkey than they should have, a bit more stuffing, a bit more desserts, a bit more pies, right? And then they feel a bit more bloated the next day, and then they got all these leftovers hanging around, and then they maybe do the same thing the next day, and then they slowly but surely derail themselves from getting back on track again, right? Which is arguably the biggest mistake a lot of beginners make on their health and fitness journey, where they have this all or nothing approach where they're either 100% completely on when it comes to their health and fitness goals, but then as soon as they have a cheat meal, a cheat day, or they miss a workout, then they're completely off it, right? And having this black or white all or nothing approach is actually going to be very detrimental in order for you to see long-term results, right? Whereas what I found with most of our successful clients in our program is that they'll have a bad day. I have bad days as well, whether it's, eat a bit more food, you have a poor night's sleep, you miss a workout, whatever. But then we don't let that derail us, that one single action, from us getting back on track again. Because ultimately what it comes down to, guys, is being consistent over a long period of time. Now, let's break down what to do on those days you won't be perfect. And no, before you're asking, no, I will not tell you to pack up chicken, broccoli, and rice in some Tupperware container and skip the pie. These are designed to limit the damage while still enjoying yourself over the holidays. So without any further ado, let's get into it. The first tip that I have for you is the morning of on the day. Eat a high-protein breakfast. Having a high-protein shake with water or a ton of egg whites or some eggs and steak or some tuna, fish, whatever your preferred source of protein is, make sure that it's a lean source of protein too. Could be Greek yogurt as well. This will help fill you up and lead you to eat a lot less later on. Keep it low calorie. This gives you flexibility for a bigger dinner at night, obviously, right? Because if you have a lower calorie breakfast, a lower calorie lunch, and you strictly just focus on protein, fruits, and veggies and drink a ton of water, you're going to save a ton of calories for later on at night, where you can actually be a bit more present around the family, around your friends, and actually indulge in some pretty good foods with the dessert as well, because you've actually saved up some extra room for those extra calories as well, right? So that is the biggest thing. And I've also noticed for a lot of people that they tend to have most of their willpower and discipline first thing in the morning. Like first thing in the morning, you're not gonna be like, oh, like I need to have this cheat meal right away, or like, oh, I need to eat these pancakes right away. It's like most people, especially if you're on the go, you just want to grab something quick, and you can pretty easily just stick to a pretty healthy, balanced breakfast and lunch. And then when dinner comes around, right, you're obviously going to be around a lot more food. It's going to be more of a social thing as well, and it's definitely a big cultural thing in the US to obviously, be around a bit more food. So by doing that, it allows you to obviously eat a bit more food at night without overdoing it on the calories. The second point that I have for you here is drinking water. Water will fill you up and leave less space for food. Keep a bottle on you at all times, whether it's at work, when you're running errands, especially first thing in the morning. Try to have a tall glass of water, ideally 1 liter, just to start your day, because oftentimes we mistake hunger for dehydration. So whenever you think of eating something or snacking on something, I highly encourage you to firstly drink some water first, and you'll notice right away that actually I wasn't even that hungry to begin with. I was just really thirsty. So making sure that you have water on you at all times, that you're constantly sipping water, is going to be super good in order for you to stay fuller for longer as well. And a good little cue for you to know if you're properly hydrated is that if you go to the bathroom, you go pee, and it's super, super yellow or it stinks, then you know that's a clear sign of your body telling you that, hey, like, we are dehydrated. And you should never really get to that point either. So make sure that every time you go to the bathroom that it is clear white, and that is a clear sign that you are fully hydrated. The third tip here is when you do obviously go for your dinner at night, fill your first plates with a ton of protein and a lot of vegetables. I'm not saying don't eat the good stuff, just eat this first. So this is a prime example of what it could look like. It could be a couple of slices of some some turkey. Try to go for the white meat rather than the dark meat if you can. Of course, you can still have some dark meat on your second plate, but try to keep it a bit leaner on your first plate. So have a couple slices of that alongside all of the vegetables. So whether it's the Brussels sprouts, the carrots, anything like that. And now, yes, most of the veggies are still going to be slathered with either a bunch of cheese or a bunch of oils, olive oil, all that stuff. But at least do this to keep your first plate a bit lower on the calories, and this will definitely help fill you up a lot more. And now when you do this, make sure that you slow down the eating as well, just so you're not like rushing through it. This also ensures that you're getting all the vital nutrients, right? You're getting all your fruits, veggies, your macronutrients. And then ultimately, this also kind of leads to you eating less pie afterwards, right? Because if you, for example, start with a high calorie or a big dish for your first plates, or maybe have some dessert on your first plate, that is obviously going to be a lot more calorically dense. And so you're going to be eating a lot more calories if you do it in reverse, as opposed to sticking with a lower calorie plate first to really fill you up. And then afterwards, if you want to have a couple more plates of more of like the good stuff, you'll actually notice that you're not going to be eating as much of it, right? Because you already filled yourself up with the lower calorie dense foods on your first plate. This kind of ties down to the fourth point, which is slow it down. Enjoy every single bite. I used to make this mistake, and I still kind of do from time to time as well, right? Where whenever I'm at like an all-you-can-eat buffet or like a big gathering like Thanksgiving or a Christmas dinner, right, where you're pretty much surrounded by unlimited food, right? It's like you got turkey there, you got stuffing there, you got the desserts there, you got the veggies there, you got the mashed potatoes, you got everything, and it just seems like there's an unlimited amount of food, right? And I think we tend to kind of go in like this scarcity mindset where back in the olden days, right, like way back, right, whenever you were surrounded by a ton of food, you would almost just like stock up and like load up on as much food as you can, just because like food wasn't always around back then, right? You didn't know where your next meal was coming from. So we kind of go into like this mindset of like hoarding all the food, starving ourselves with all the food because we don't know when our next opportunity is for us to eat, right? Whereas nowadays, obviously, we're super privileged that we have access to more than enough food at all times, right? There's fast food places, restaurants, grocery stores, everywhere we go. So that is not really a big concern for us anymore, right? But whenever we again, are surrounded by a ton of food, we just tend to get back into this mindset, right? It's more of an olden days thing that is probably still through evolution hasn't really we've gotten rid of, but really be mindful whenever you eat, right? So you got your plate in front of you. Again, everything that's on your plate, no one's going to steal it from you. You're not going to have to hoard people off it. Like once you grab your plate, it's like, okay, I got my plate here. Take a couple breaths because no one's going to take it from you, and really just like look at your plate. Obviously socialize and just take it one bite at a time. Don't just stuff yourself really, really quickly and then go on to the next plate, which is something I used to do all the time. Just be fully present and eat the food and really chew it. Like chew a lot. Like chew and make sure that the food in your mouth almost turns into like liquid form. I know it sounds kind of gross, but like really make sure that you're mindful, you're slowing it down, and you're chewing everything extensively. Take a couple sips of water, take a couple deep breaths, socialize a bit. You don't have to eat food for every single second that you're on the dinner table. Like take a step back, right? Maybe talk to a person next to you, whatever it may be, because ultimately it also comes down to being with your friends and family and not just being laser focused on the food. Number 5 is limit snacking. So obviously during this time of year, big portions and big meals are involved. Obviously Thanksgiving, Christmas dinner, all this stuff. And to be honest with you guys, the last thing that I want to do is actually almost like waste my calories on mindlessly, aimlessly snacking, because I'd rather get most of my calories from like the tasty foods and the tasty meals that I'll be eating, right? So not only that, but calories do add up very, very quickly when you're grabbing bites here and there that you're not really keeping track of or really taking into account. Because sure, like a couple handful of chips, nuts, seeds, whatever, like it's not going to seem like a huge deal in that very particular moment. But if you're constantly doing that 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 times a day, right, a couple handfuls can turn into a couple extra hundreds, if not thousands of extra calories throughout the day and throughout the weeks, right? So these can really, really creep up on you. So make sure that you're just mindful when you do it. If you do want to snack, of course, by all means do it. Just make sure that you take it into account, keep track of it, and especially the higher calorie dense foods, right? Like the nuts and stuff, the seeds, they may be quote unquote healthy, but the calories can very quickly add up, right? Especially when it comes to like the chocolates and the brittles, anything like that. Just make sure that you are fully present and take that into account if you do that. Now, this is really important as well, going back to the first point when I mentioned that a lot of people have this all or nothing mindset where during the Christmas, the holiday time, they just completely stop everything. Don't do that. Like, still maintain your exercise routine. So ideally, keep a high step count. Go for at least 10,000 steps a day, just to stay nice and active. This can also help you digest the food a bit. So instead of you being in like a food coma after a big dinner, try to go on a walk, because this will definitely help aid in digestion, and you'll feel a lot better afterwards as well, as opposed to just sitting down on the couch and then just doing nothing afterwards, right? And then try to organize your weight training as well to make sure that you get it in during the week. So whether it's first thing in the morning before all the crazy stuff happens, if you have to do that, go ahead and do that. If you have some time in the middle of the day, do that. Maybe at nighttime, do that. Just make sure that you fit it into your schedule. And now, I'm not saying you have to work out 6 days a week, which is super unrealistic for most people. As little as just doing 2 to 3 workouts a week during full body sessions, you're still going to be hitting each muscle group 2 times per week. And if you really focus on the compound lifts like a squat, bench, and deadlifts, you can get some really awesome results just by simply doing that. Just 2 to 3 times a week, right? 45 minutes to an hour long sessions. Like, I'm not really asking a whole lot of you guys when it comes to that, but you can still maintain a really awesome physique. If anything, maintain your strength during this time by maybe cutting back on the sessions while still, again, maintaining, if not progressing with your lifts as well. Point number 7 is booze. Make sure that you use this strategically, because at the end of the day, alcohol really is just empty calories. Plus, it leads you to smash more food and makes you lazy AF. This decreases calories out and also increases your calories in. So cut back as much as possible. And if you must, stick to like a low calorie drink and hydrate as much as you can afterwards as well. And lastly, or second to last thing, is caffeine. This is actually a really useful tool when it comes to anyone's fat loss journey. This is something that I personally use every other day, and that is coffee. So caffeine is a powerful appetite suppressant. Add an extra coffee or two to keep your hunger down throughout the morning and afternoon. So if you participate in intermittent fasting, which I know some people do in our program, simply what this does, it's nothing magical secret about it. It just simply decreases your eating window. So instead of eating breakfast, let's say from 8 a.m. and then having your last meal at 8 p.m., you're simply delaying your breakfast from 8 a.m. to either 10 a.m. or noon or 2 p.m., however long you want to delay your first meal for. And this allows you, as you can tell by having that narrower eating window, this allows you to eat larger portions in a shorter time frame, right? Which a lot of people have a bigger appetite towards the later portion of the day, and including myself, I'd rather eat a bigger dinner than eating a bigger breakfast, so I allocate more calories towards that, right? And to kind of suppress my appetite during that time, I'll have a coffee, which suppresses my appetite, gives me more energy as well, and it's a great appetite suppressant overall. Just make sure that you keep it black. If you do want to add sugars and creamers to it, just know that you're adding more calories into it as well. Now, the last thing here, this is super, super important, guys, and that is to chill out. To gain 1 pound of fat, you'd have to eat 3,500 calories. Not just 3,500 calories, but 3,500 calories on top of your maintenance. So the average American burns around 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day. So in order for you to gain 1 pound of fat in general, you'd have to eat close to 6,000 calories on a single day, which for most people, like, it's actually a lot of food, right? So this kind of puts into perspective how much food you actually have to eat in order to gain 1 pound of fat. Now you're probably asking yourself, but Conan, why did I gain 5 pounds overnight whenever I ate slightly more than I should have, right? And all of that is just water weight, right? simply just relying on the scale isn't a really accurate way to actually see how much fat you actually gain over the holidays. And all of this really fluctuates. You may notice a couple pounds up here and there, but just know that that's not going to be a couple pounds of pure fat. Again, you have to eat 6,000 calories in one single day in order for you to do that. So a couple of days off here and there, like, it's not going to kill any of your progress, as long as you go back to the first point, which I mentioned to you. As long as you don't let one bad day derail you from getting back on track again, you're going to be totally fine during this holiday season. So hopefully some of these tips helps you out, and hopefully you can start implementing these tips as well. If you do have any questions regarding any of this, please let me know. But more importantly, like I said, be present, be mindful. This is a really special time of year that you can be present with your friends, your family, make some amazing memories, and of course, eat some good food along the way as well. Have that piece of pie, have some dessert, but just don't have this all or nothing approach, because hey, guess what? Next year, you're going to be able to experience this as well, and all throughout the year, there's also going to be some cool events for you to still experience some good food without having to really lose any of your progress. So I'm going to let you guys go. Any questions for me, please let me know. I'll see you all soon. Peace.